Hey, we're switching it all up tonight. This is the crazy week. Everything's backwards, upside down. But you know what's the same is my friend Steve Russell. It's always good to see his face. There's something very comforting about seeing Steve Russell and hearing his voice. I guess it's because all those chaotic football games, all the stuff going to craziness, and the one voice of reason and sanity you can get after the game on the radio is Steve Russell, always. Steve, my goodness gracious, great to see you again. I know we talked recently, but I sure miss you. I don't get to see you enough. I hope you'll be back doing something soon. I'm sure you will. Hang on, my friend.
Well, it's good to be back, buddy. Always welcome to do it with you, and glad I'm here.
Right, tonight on the program, we're going to have Steve. We've got Peek Wilbur on a little later on, talk some football. There is that out there. We'll also be talking to Franz Beard on his way to San Antonio. And then we'll be talking to, we think, Scott Carter, if all goes well, who is in San Antonio. There's something happening out in San Antonio, apparently, Steve. Something going on there, right?
Yeah, very fortunate, buddy, to be able to go out when Billy went back-to-back, got to go out to back-to-back championships. My son was on Billy's staff, so that was really cool to share that experience there. Yeah, so it's special. And, it's been a while for Florida, and that's why the fan base is so geeked for this. And I hope, buddy, that no matter what happens this weekend, it's been a heck of a year for Florida. It's been a successful year for Florida. It's been a tremendous year for Florida, no matter what happens here.
I was talking to some of our friends from Auburn about that on another show today, as a matter of fact, that very thing. About what's it going to be like when it's over, because we're so spoiled. 10 straight wins, right? And the way they won them, magnificent way they were won. There's some new heroes born in Gainesville. Everybody's been talking about it. Obviously, we know number one is it. Brendan, let's do the open. You ready to go? Let's do this, and we'll come back. We'll get Steve waiting up. So Peek Wilbur. We'll get Steve take on everything, including basketball. Can they win the national championship? What I call the Tiffany series, Pearl versus Golden. Get it?
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind, because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Welcome to the Buddy Martin Show. I'm Buddy Martin. He's Steve Russell. We'll be with you for a few minutes. And we'll kick it over to Peek Wilbur for some football talk. But Steve has covered everything for a long time. This is I was trying to evaluate this today. Let's just say, project it out. Florida wins the national championship and has the best guard in the country, as we all think he is, and ends up being that shot he made this last game was very Spurrier-esque. How will this basketball team be regarded? And how will he be regarded as one of the great athletes in the University of Florida? Certainly no better basketball player than him.
Well, sometimes when you look at a team, buddy, you judge it in two ways. You judge them as college athletes, and then some people look and say, okay, what do they do as a pro? Horford, that whole bunch of Billies, right, that went to the pros.
Right.
But to me, that doesn't matter. It's what you do in college. And
right.
As far as Clayton, I mean, think about what he did. He dribbled in and then dribbled back out to take a very tough three, and he made it. But the good news with that is he's not the only dude here. I mean, Thomas Houck has been great down the stretch here, and it can be a different person every night. And that's what makes this team, I think, so difficult to go up against, because offensively, they can have a lot of guys beat you. Defensively, they're not great, but they're better. But what we've seen in the tournament, buddy, that concerns me a bit is they got to cut the turnovers down. They got to take better care of the basketball, I think, in the Final Four.
I was asked this today. I'll let you answer it by the show I was on, which is basically an Auburn show. But what do you think is going to happen to Florida? Were they lucky in the 2 games they won? Does it make them a better team or less than a team? They had to struggle back against Utah and then Texas Tech to win the games? Or have they proven they can win any game anytime?
They've proven they can win any game anytime. Buddy, look, to get this far, you have to have a little luck too, right? You think Texas Tech was unlucky? They had a 95% chance to win the game, according to whatever that thing is.
I saw that number.
With 3 minutes and 17 seconds left, and lost the game, right? They missed a couple of free throws, 1-and-1-and-1s. So those things get magnified this time of the year. Regular season, a big deal. But when it happens now, that gets magnified. So I think Florida earned that win, and they belong in the Final Four.
Yeah. Did it bother you? I know that sometimes we get labeled as homers, but because we see one team all the time, we know the nuances of it. We know the strengths and the winks, and we know strengths and weaknesses. And we also are aware of the fact that they don't get their just due quite often. Now, I don't want to be a homer about this and get defensive, and everybody's got good players. Don't get me wrong. It seemed that for a while there, before the 10-game win streak, that Florida wasn't getting a whole lot of respect. People didn't really believe them. They go up and beat Auburn, beat the crap out of Auburn, at Auburn. They beat Alabama. They had a hiccup naturally against Georgia, but they started getting their game face on. And during that stretch, it was all they could do to get a 2 seed. Seemed like they couldn't hardly get that, and then they barely got a 1 seed. I'm thinking, what happened here exactly? Why were so many people so late coming to the party on Florida? I'm not saying they should have been a 1 seed off the bat, but we knew by watching this team they were exceptional, and it had nothing to do with being a homer. If you watch the depth of this team, and we know that's their weapon is the depth that they have, and you watch how they were coached, what they've overcome, you could tell this team was special. But I don't think the national media got caught up on how special they were, Steve. Do you?
I think part of the reason for that, buddy, is the non-conference schedule that Florida played. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible.
True.
But there weren't a lot of marquee teams on the schedule where you'd look at Florida and go, oh, they beat, I don't know, Michigan State. They beat Houston. They played a competitive but not a great non-conference. So a lot of people didn't know about Florida. And then to get to the SEC, well, now people start noticing because of how tough the league is, right? And all the wins that Florida got. So I think that's one of the reasons why some people were late on Florida, because they didn't really have that signature, look at us non-conference win before the season started.
Very true. Quad 1. I think they make up these terms sometimes, and I'm thinking, since when is it more important to win quad 1 games than to beat the teams head-to-head? Beating the teams head-to-head, best teams, all of have be the winner takes all. Seems like to maybe get caught up in all these little terms, quad 1, this, that, the other. And I don't understand how they arrive at these formulas sometimes. I'm just an old guy trying to figure out this game.
Well, I think part of it is just trying to look at who you play, right? Who you beat, because getting a quad 1 win means that, you are beating another good team that has similar characteristics to you in terms of, what it's done over the course of the year. And you don't get really punished by winning a quad 2 or a quad 3 game, but you can get punished by losing one of those games. So look, when you play in this league, especially this year, buddy, with what Florida did, all that quad 1 stuff was going to take care of itself because of the schedule that Florida played and how well they played it.
Steve Russell is my guest. Great to have him on. Steve, tell people who can't see that backwards what that shirt is right there.
One more time, buddy. I'm sorry.
Tell me what that shirt.
Oh,
We
Santa Fe
can't-
College. I happen to be wearing this today. Just first thing out of the drawer. Larry Tyree used to be the president of Santa Fe. Gave me the shirt. And Johnny Wiggs is over there. He's a good buddy coaching baseball. So I'm sporting Santa Fe College tonight.
Speaking of baseball, we're going to talk some baseball tonight. What a terrible start for these Florida Gators. I want to get into a little football before you get out of here, too.
Sure.
We'll talk about it's been awfully quiet. I know Billy left today for San Antonio. He's taking, I think, his two sons out there. He's going to be a Gator fan here. It seems like there's some things going on there. A lot of buzz about some of these young players, particularly wide receivers. Let's go back to talk about baseball. How could it be possible that Sully's not won an SEC game?
They won one. They won at Ole Miss. They got one.
When? This past weekend?
This past weekend. Yeah.
Got missed that one.
They got one, but they're still 1-8. And part of the reason for that, buddy, is that they've played 3 ranked teams in a row, and arguably 2 of the best teams in the entire country in Tennessee and Georgia. And at Tennessee, they could have won a game, kind of gave one away. I think against Georgia, they could have won, but they did not. So if you look at last year, right, when Florida struggled, most years, if you get 13 league wins, you get in. Now, you may not host a regional, but that's what Florida did last year, right? They snuck in.
Okay.
Well, there's 21 more games in the SEC. So to get to 13 wins, I'm not great at math, but you got to go 12-9. Is that doable? Yeah, because you still have to play a bad Missouri team. You got to play a bad Mississippi State team, a struggling South Carolina team, although 2 of those series are on the road. And Florida gets Vanderbilt this week at home, and Vandy just got swept by Arkansas. And Vandy, in my opinion, is not as good as past Vanderbilt teams.
Right.
And the other thing is injuries. Look, buddy, 2/3 of the Gators starting rotation
That's a killer.
didn't pitch for a while. Liam Peterson got back last week, and now Cade Curlin's out for the year. Kyle Jones was expected to be really good. He barely played and got hurt.
Yeah.
So that all rolls into the fact that Florida is not the team that was assembled at the start of the year. The good news, still time.
Okay, we started late here tonight because of internet problems. We're going to bring in Allie and share talk some football talk with us, and Steve, hang around for a minute if you will. Say good evening to Allie.
Sure. Hi, Allie. How are you?
How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you.
Good.
Great. Steve Russell agreed to bail me out tonight while I was swimming in internet problems. And we're talking about a little of everything, including the basketball and, of course, baseball team. We're off to a rough start. Anything you want to shed light on now, go ahead. But where do you think this baseball team stands now? We all think, okay, Sully's got to run him someplace. He always has these young pitchers that develop late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when he gets them back? The team is not hitting either.
Yeah.
So tell me, Steve and Allie, where do you think they're going to go from here?
I mean, I think their current issues are a combination of things, which Steve touched on them. They have seen a silly amount of injuries this early in the season. That's part of it. I do think college baseball is so tricky because Sully has what works for him, right? He usually pitches his young talent during the week, which is why we normally lose games to Florida State, and things like that, midweek games. They develop throughout the course of the season, and then they're usually just red hot by the time it comes postseason play. I don't know that we're going to see it on the same clip that we're used to, but I don't think that means Florida baseball is suddenly terrible. I do think they've played a tough schedule. I think they have a lot of injuries. I think my main concern is that in some of these losses where they've just essentially collapsed in the 9th inning, it hasn't seemed to bother them as much as I would like it to bother them. So if there is something that I would like them to focus on, it would kind of be that killer instinct that, Sully's teams are more than capable of having, but I don't know if this team has. And I think that's more concerning to me than the losses themselves. It's just kind of these complete collapses and then, I don't know, not seeming to be bothered by that.
What do you think of that, Steve?
I see, Allie, what you're saying. And I think they're bothered by it, but not outwardly, I think is what you're kind of trying to say. But I know in the locker room, it is a concern for them. And I did the game on radio last night. It was all those pitchers that pitched for both teams last night. But Sully's really now trying to figure out who he's got to pitch. But what he has are really a lot of young arms.
Yeah.
They thought Phil Pott was going to be the closer. He's not worked out. So they're using him now in some middle relief. Clemente's not worked out as a starter. So he's now being used in middle relief, and they're having to rely on a lot of young pitchers to try to bridge them through games. And the starting pitchers are not going long. They're going 4 innings, 5 innings. When your bullpen's not very deep,
Sure,
that's a problem. So all that's got to get fixed too.
Yeah, I agree. And, Sully is such a good baseball coach. And so I try to kind of block out the noise from Gator fans that are pissed about how the season is going thus far, right? But at the end of the day, you have an incredible baseball coach who, if it doesn't get put together this season, it'll be fixed by next season, because that's the way that Sully works. And I don't think that there's any long-term things that the Gators need to worry about. But I think this is just a combination of a lot of ills, and some of which we could potentially have seen coming, some of which we had no control over. And it's not as pretty a season as Florida fans were hoping for.
And buddy, let's remember this time last year, we were all saying the same stuff.
It's true. That's true.
Now you had a Caglione to, he's not there anymore, but there's, still a little more than half the season to go here. So there's still time, but it's running out. They got to right the ship fast.
Yeah.
Speaking of Caglione, he's not going to get called up right away. Kind of disappointed. Probably a good thing. What's your take on that, Steve?
Starting in Double-A, and I think that's the right place for him. I think the worst thing you can do to any prospect is rush them and then fail, and then you set them back. To me, and now Langford, the exception, right? But those don't come around a lot. So I think where he's starting now, buddy's great. But don't be surprised, over the course of the season, maybe late, or if there's injuries, he gets called up. But I think where they're starting him is the right place.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to hang for a second. I want to do this quick commercial, come back and talk a little bit of football, because we forgot about this football. Meanwhile, there are things going on. I'm sure Billy's glad the attention is off of him. But a lot of good reports, Allie. I know you've heard a few. I've heard some glowing reports, especially about the wide receivers. We'll talk about that with Steve Russell and Allie Peek Wilbur after this timeout to talk about our good friends at Meldon Law. They're superior Gator fans and superior attorneys there. If you need legal help, I recommend you try them. I've done that. Been very happy. Meldon Law located in 4 locations, North Central Florida, Ocala, Gainesville, Wilson, and Lake City. They specialize in you. They want you to call them, and they'll do their best to get back to you. You won't get somebody from some lawyer and a number. You'll get the folks at Meldon Law. So check them out. They, of course, will not back down. They're Gators. Meldon Law. Check them out. All right, guys, football. I heard, I think Jalen Tabor, I believe is who I heard on our show last night with Lauren. He raved about the wide receivers. I mean, raved about them, and even said he wouldn't be surprised if all freshmen started. I mean, and he just couldn't say enough about Trey Wilson. Well, that's one bright spot, it appears. Let's assess the wide receiver positions, Steve and Allie, and talk about that. We know that it's certainly a strength of the team now, although yet unproven. What are we hearing? What are you hearing, Steve, about these receivers?
Same thing. Very high praise for them. Good group, deep group, talented group. But it's funny, and maybe Allie can amplify on this a little bit. When it's so frustrating to not really see practice and not really, really know what's going on. You hear dribs and drabs and you hear all of that. And now the way basketball is performing, spring football has almost been an afterthought because of the run that Florida's made here. But it's just too bad that, Lagway's not been able to throw, and that's put a damper on everything. And do I think spring ball is still helpful? I do. But I wish, if I had my way, take spring practice out. And then if you're going to have a spring game, scrimmage somebody else. Get somebody else so a fan can see that, okay, we're going to go up against somebody else here and see what we can do. I think it's a great – I've been advocating that for years. It's never happened. But spring ball is a bit of an afterthought. It's been a little bit of a mystery, really. But I think this Gator team has a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah, we hear a lot of things. You're right about that, but I don't think they would want to risk the injuries.
Yeah.
Game.
Well,
But it is just, it's so tender now. So much money involved in NIL, be 100 lawyers involved in it. But I'm with you. I'd like to see that. And I'm also hearing Billy say this is the best offensive line he's ever had, more or less. I'm hearing the defense is better. I'm hearing now. I did hear Jaluka call out Jaden Ball just a little bit the other day, talking about, hey, let's see what he can do now. You know, he's had 1 year, but he's got to prove some things. He's challenging, which I'm glad. We keep hearing about those running backs. Allie, what's the most encouraging thing you've been hearing?
I thought it was interesting that we heard out of practice that the wide receivers might be the very best group on the team, because that's hard to believe, not because they're not incredibly talented, but because there's some other rooms that are seriously incredibly talented. I think about the linebacking room, right? I think about the running back room. I think about the D-line room. Like those would be the units I would expect the offensive line unit to hear about. So the fact that we're hearing about the wide receivers and they are as young as they are is really encouraging. But I stand Billy Gonzalez always. And I just think that he just quietly does such a tremendous job and really doesn't get the accolades that he deserves in terms of development. All he does is develop wide receivers. It's crazy how good he is at that. And, we have Dallas Wilson. We have Rennell Brown III coming in. Like, we have exciting young new talent. If Trey Wilson
started, he's not a youngster, but he's starting.
And he is really exciting to see. If Trey Wilson stays healthy this year, I don't think we've seen the best that Trey Wilson is capable of, which is scary, right? Because when he touches the ball, he is electric. But I think that we can still get more from him if he stays healthy. And that the success of that room will hinge, at least in part, by that offensive line unit. And I've said for months, I think Florida's going to have a top 5 offensive line unit. Which is crazy. Like, this is the right group to say this to, because you guys have been there longer than I have. I feel like we've been concerned about our offensive line for literally 20 years at this point. Like, since the Pounceys left, has there ever been a time where we've been like, oh, offensive line's a strength, we're good? I actually feel like we are going to have the opportunity to say that this season, which I almost don't want to speak it out loud because I don't want to jinx that. But this is such a talented, but also getting deep room, which I think maybe has actually been Florida's issue over the past, 2 decades, is that you have the talent, but if you lose that talent to injury, we have never been deep enough to replace it, in a way where we didn't feel that loss massively.
I don't know what names you guys are hearing, but and the linebacker room's had a lot of run too. Mm-hmm. Also, I heard a guy say the most impressive person out there was Woods.
Yeah.
What's his first name? I've forgotten his first name. Said he was the most impressive guy on the most impressive.
Yeah, Jaden Woods. There was a quote out today about that saying he's incredibly impressive, which that was interesting to hear as well, actually.
Yeah. So,
I'll throw a little bit of cold water on this.
Okay.
Because I think when you talk about now, do I agree with Allie that this group's got a chance to be good? Yes, I do. I think this team has a chance to be good. But everybody says that now. How many coaches say we suck now in the spring?
That's true. And buddy, I say that all the time, that I take what we hear to practice with a grain of salt, because it's the people we hear things from are either the coaches themselves or the people donating enough money that they're allowed to stay at practice after they make the reporters leave. Who are getting gassed up by the coaches and saying, like, look at how good we are. You should donate a little bit more money and we might be even better. Like this.
Yes.
I do agree with that statement.
But to your point, Allie, though, which I agree with, is that if you take a look, buddy, at last year and then what is returning, there is talent, proven talent returning. And the offensive line, I think, is the key to the whole deal. I don't care if you have Joe Burrow quarterbacking. If he gets no time to throw the ball, no good. So the offensive line last year, I thought, was decent in the run game. They weren't terrible last year, but I think they have a chance if they stay healthy. They're deeper. I think there's more talent there, and I think they got a chance to be a really good unit.
Good point. Let me bring Franz Beard. I know you got to go, Steve. Keep you about 3 or 4 more minutes.
Sure.
Have a little football round table here. Franz is on his. Although Franz is a basketball writer now. He may not want to talk about football.
All basketball writers right now.
Yeah, he's on his way to San Antonio, where Scott Carter is. He'll be checking in later. Even to you, Francis. Say hello to Allie and to Steve.
Hey, Allie. Gosh, you're better looking than the rest of us. I don't know how that happened.
Wait a minute. I take offense at that.
Well, you should. Facts is facts, Bud Light.
You didn't mention Steve, how good looking he is.
Yeah, well,
he's got he would be number 2 on the good looking list.
Well, thank you for that.
Anyway, hey guys, good to see you, Steve.
Same here.
Seen you in a while.
Good to see you too.
We're going to table basketball to just a second, and we're going to talk a little football here. We got these 2 esteemed members of the panel tonight about some of the positive things we're hearing. But I don't know, Franz, you haven't been out there. No, I mean, Allie, I don't think we've been out to practice. Steve, maybe you have. I haven't been. I just go what I read, hear, and see in the press coverage. It feels like something. It feels like good things are happening. Like we said, we're hearing good reports about the rooms, how good the rooms are at linebacker, D-line, the wide receivers are setting it on fire, etc. Let's check him. Franz, you've been so wrapped up in basketball, you probably didn't know Florida still played football.
Oh, I do. And here's what I've heard. And I think I don't think this is a rumor. I think this is truth. I think that I heard that DJ Lagway is just fine, never has really been injured. They just needed Harrison Bailey to get all the snaps during spring practice, and that worked out well. I mean, buddy, anyway.
I ain't buying that. I ain't buying that. One second. You got a chance to coach your players, you're going to coach them.
And it isn't exactly like he had a ton of experience, from last year. He needed reps.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I mean, I'm just telling you what I heard.
Sure.
I mean, I think there's some. I don't know that he hasn't gotten reps. It's just that we have, they let the media see. What do you see? An hour, 10 minutes and 2 seconds of calisthenics. He may have been flinging the ball all over the place.
According to the reports I've gotten, the people in practice, they've not seen him throw a football yet, the ones I've talked to. But that's just people I know are there. I don't have any that really good sources. Allie, have you heard anything about that?
I've texted with a couple of people that are close with him, and they have essentially told me he has tendonitis. It's not a big deal. They're trying to just, let it heal, let it be, and
so a pitcher of baseball, right?
Yeah, essentially to preserve it for the long run. That there's these rumors about him having surgery, I've been told, are completely false, and that this is more precautionary than anything else. And it's not that there's zero injury at all. It's that he's used his arm a lot, and he's got a little bit of tendonitis, and they're just trying to let it to go. And I do agree that they have to develop the quarterbacks behind him. We have watched the last 2 years what has happened when Florida's starting quarterback has gone down, and obviously this past year starter and then backup, and the drop off has been massive, and we've lost games because of it. So if we do have an opportunity to rest the guy that we think we're going to ride the entire way and get reps to the guys that we need to be able to step in if, God forbid, something happens to our starter, I don't really see the downside in that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Franz. Just go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, whether it's real that he has it or not, they've shut him down, and that doesn't mean he can't take a rep and sit there and hand the ball off and go through progressions and everything like that. But the thing about it is Allie, you're right. They've got to get a quarterback ready. And I think they made a really good pickup in Harrison Bailey. I think he's a guy that really, really hasn't been given the chance that he needed to. He was a 5-star talent coming out of high school, and went up to Tennessee, and then injuries and Jeremy Pruitt and whatever. And he made a bad move going to Louisville because Louisville gets a new coach in who first thing he does is brings in his own guy. Mm-hmm. So, he's untested, but he's got talent, obviously. I agree with something I heard Steve say earlier. we can forget about all these accolades for the running backs, the receivers, the cornerbacks, the punters, you name it. It's going to come down to those 5 hogs on the line. And if they have a good year, Florida has a good year, period.
All right, Steve, I'm going to give you the last word on this subject, and then let's say goodbye. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure.
We're late getting Steve on. And any word on when you might be doing more on radio or TV or anything, Steve?
I'm gonna do some stuff at TV 20 down the road.
Good.
I can't say what's going to happen because I can't. I'm not allowed to.
But you're a teacher, right?
Well, when you retire from the state, you got to sit out 6 months. You are not allowed to talk to them. They can't talk to me. My penance would end in July because I retired in January. So, you know,
that was perfect football timing, by the way.
Yeah. So for the fall, you know, in theory, we'll see. I mean, I enjoy doing the podcast I'm doing. I really enjoy the one with Mark Wise. He's just, you know, great talking hoops. But it's also nice to have a little time. You can, you know, do some different things. I've enjoyed that too. But yeah, we're going to see what happens in the fall.
Yeah. All right. So tell me, give me your basketball thoughts. I'll let you go. Where do you go from here?
Okay. I think Florida beats Auburn. But they've got to take better care of the basketball than they've taken care of it lately. And I think for Auburn, the higher the score, the more it favors Florida. Because when they met, Florida had 13 threes against Auburn when they first met. I think Auburn had 6 or 7. So to me, if Auburn wins, Florida doesn't take care of the basketball. It's a little lower scoring game, but I think Florida is on a good offensive roll now. They win. Duke and Houston just guards the nonsense out of you. And I think they're going to I think Duke's going to win, but man, close. Houston could win this game because their guards shoot a lot better than they shot at the beginning of the year. But man, they get after you on defense. They do not make it easy. It's going to be a fun Final Four to watch.
Yeah, Robert Turner's just asking that question. A comment on this. I know Franz is not a big Kelvin Sampson fan, but I got to tell you, this team is playing really well, and they're also dangerous on defense. They really guard people well, and they're capable of beating anybody there if they're playing right. They're under the radar right now. I mean, I'd worry about Houston a little bit. They can knock off Duke, I think. What do you think, Allie?
I mean, I think Duke beats Houston. I think Houston is playing really good basketball right now, but we have the 4 number ones moving forward. So like this conversation about like, oh, well, these are 4 fantastic basketball teams that are fully capable of any one of them on any given night beating the other person. We are seeing some of the best basketball in my lifetime that we've seen in a tournament, which is kind of astounding. But I think Gator fans should want to see Houston. I think that's who they should root for. I think Florida would have an easier championship game if that's who they were to play. But I hesitate to look too far ahead because I want to focus on Auburn first.
Raise your hand if you had all 4 number ones.
Did you?
I think
I had 3.
I had 3.
Yeah.
I didn't have Houston.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you, here's the thing that I look at is this. You look at the teams that play the game after they've played Houston, and they have bad games typically because they go through calling a game with Houston a rock fight is, that's like calling a heavyweight championship fight, a feather, fight with feather dusters. The teams that Houston plays get battered, they get bruised, they get beat up. Now, what I'm going to tell you is I think Duke's going to win that game, but I don't know if Duke is going to recover from that ball game to play a good game on Monday night. And that's going to be the case with Florida and Auburn. Which of these teams is going to come through in good enough shape, feeling good about itself, having endured what I think is going to be an awfully tough ball game to play at a high level?
would you consider, this to everybody, would you guys consider Florida the deepest team of the four? And if the answer to that is yes, does that mean that these two games close together probably least affect the Gators out of all four?
Yes and yes. I think by far the deepest team. They can put 10 people on the floor, play them all, and they all can play and run the court and shoot and dribble and whatever. I think there's nobody anywhere close to as talented and deep as Florida right now. Whether they'll play the best, I don't know, but they are amazing, Steve.
Yeah, I agree, Allie. And I think the only guy that played a little bit, Klapschar played some. He's not playing much anymore because he struggled. The one guy who struggled in the postseason was him. But otherwise, I mean, look at what Houck has done. I mean, I get what Clayton, all the accolades for him, but Thomas Houck is a dude, man. He has improved. He hits threes, and what Hand-Lockton did to give up a redshirt year, on the boards, he's good. He's a good defender. Aberdeen's maybe the most improved player on the entire team, from a year ago. This is what I like. Is this has been a fun team to watch. It's been a fun team to follow, and you root for this kind of a team. You really do.
You can. And by the way, Denzel Aberdeen is not chopped liver. I've liked him always. I mean, this team, somebody asked me today what players could come up big and sort of in a surprise unsung role. I said, they're all sung. None of them are unsung. They're all good players, right? They can all
Richard, what he's done in this tournament. I mean, there were points in time where Will Richard was the best person in the basketball game.
How do you score 0 points in one game and 35 the next, or 25 the next? You just don't ever hear of that, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about Will Richard, in that he is able to put bad games behind him, offensive games. I don't think he ever has a bad game defensively. You want to talk about dudes? He is a dude defensively. And the same is true with Elijah Martin. Elijah Martin has had some horrendous shooting games, but his defense never suffers. And these two guys, what they can do on the perimeter is they can take away both sides of a perimeter. And that is critical when you get to this level, because you got teams that, okay, they got a guy, they got two shooters, but you only got one really good defender on the perimeter. That guy on the other side wears you out. Florida's got two guys that can defend both sides. They can make up for the fact that Walter gives up a little bit defensively because he's focused so much on scoring and moving the basketball and doing this stuff. Walter's not a bad defensive player, but he's not at the same level as Elijah Martin and Will Richard. And these are two guys who can sacrifice some offense, but they never sacrifice their defense. And I think that's another thing to look at for Saturday and even going into the game with Duke, because Duke's got these 2 6'7" guys, Con Knupel and Tyrese Proctor, who can just absolutely wear you out from the 3-point line. And they're both of them are like 6'7". Both of them can really, really load it up and shoot. And that's going to be the key. Florida's going to have to guard these guys if it is Duke. If it's Houston, then break out the brass knuckles, the switchblades, get a billy club, and if they'll let you bring in a taser, get that too, because that's what it's going to take to play those guys.
All right, Steve. Thank you, buddy. It's great to have you on. Appreciate it very much.
Buddy, thank you. And good to have you back with you all. Good seeing you
all.
Good
to see you, Stevie.
Same here.
Great seeing you, Steve.
Yep.
All right, the great Steve Russell kicking us off.
He is. And I got to tell you what, WRUF is missing badly without him at noontime. His show was iconic at noontime. And you look at what they've lost in the last 6-7 years. They lost Steve Russell, they lost Larry Vitale, and they have not replaced two guys that know the sports at UF as well or better than anybody we've ever had.
Yeah.
Peek Wilbur.
I'm very concerned about who's going to do the call-in show on driving out of Gainesville after that.
That's the one they're going to miss because it's your set. Franz never hears that because he's up the press box.
Right.
But it's like psychology time.
Well, I'll tell you something I miss. I got to tell you, I miss Larry Vittel always. I'm Larry Vittel. You know who you are. You know?
Yeah.
Well, great signature line there. But we've had, we've really been blessed. You look at the writers that have come through here that have gone on to good stuff. You look at the broadcasters who've done the same thing. I mean, I remember Jeremy Fowler getting dressed down by Urban Meyer, and now he is a star over there at ESPN. I remember Laura Rutledge doing call-in recruiting shows, and Buddy and Brendan found her, and Steve Russell too. Those are the three people who elevated her career. And we've had so many great people who've come through here. I mean, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit, Allie, but your podcast is terrific. And people, if you're not watching her, she is a star. I'm telling you, she's a star. And that's not because you're good looking and you're Eric. And I always loved Eric. Eric, I could walk by him and say punters, and he'd laugh.
And you're not allowed to tell Liddy she's good looking anymore. Okay,
Okay, I'm just telling you this a fact.
Can't say it. Can't say it. It's a problem. Okay?
But here's the thing. We've got this team in this basketball team that I think is just absolutely has. I don't think it. Quite frankly, I don't think people are that interested in football right now because they're so absorbed with this basketball team.
Yeah. Okay.
I get 50 text messages a day, and maybe one of them's about football.
I know basketball. Here's a note from Brendan Martin, our producer. Say he just clipped a video of Mark Long talking about DJ Lagway. Oh, the part about him saying something's fishy.
Yeah.
And he says his shoulder is going to need to have surgery at some point. He says, hasn't been to MRI or anything, but he knows there's something wrong, and they're downplaying it. His shoulder's going to need to have surgery at some point, he says. He's got a clip he's going to play here for us in a minute to get back to Lagway. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a sore arm deal.
Think about all of the sources that everybody that covers UF has, right? Don't you think that somebody would have gotten that phone call before now if that was really the case? Well, and knowing what you know about UF, when somebody gets hurt, they're getting x-rays and MRIs 10 minutes after walking off the field. Do you think there's a single solitary chance that the starting quarterback for the University of Florida, who, by the way, everyone is hanging the hopes of this team on, wouldn't have had an MRI if they think that there's some sort of injury that could potentially require surgery down the road?
Well, that's why it's so intriguing, is we know the people lie about things. And I tell you, Mark Long is nothing else. He's a very good reporter. I know people don't like to acknowledge him because he reports things that are not positive. Gator fans get really mad at him. He's the most hated reporter out there, Edgar Thompson. When you write things that are your own sources that you believe to be true, it's not what people want to hear, and all of a sudden it's killed the messenger time. Yeah. So anyway, I've learned to leave that. You're right. I've seen bigger stories than that fall in the cracks.
Yeah.
Get them. So it's just the way it is. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. So sorry for interrupting. I think Brendan may be coming back and drop out on us in a minute. This is one of the most exciting times I can remember. I said the other day on a column I wrote, this might be one of my top 10 experiences in covering sports, this basketball team. And I hadn't even been there like Franz has, but it's just so much fun. There's so much positivity around it. There's so many good things. The place they started from, Franz, the problems that Golden had right off the bat alley with the Title IX suit, when things looked glum, and to play their way out of it. And then a couple of times we about gave them up for dead, like the Georgia game, and they're right back at it. They're so resilient, and they're getting better. And I finally just realized they're just a whole lot better basketball players than we thought, and a heck of a basketball coach and a heck of a basketball team. There's no reason why they can't win this thing.
Well, there isn't any reason why they can't. And I wrote about it. I just it went up a little bit ago. Todd even says we haven't played our best.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, the 3 games they played in Nashville were phenomenal. But did they play their best? I don't know that they did.
Turned the ball over a whole bunch of them the first
They
two.
played their best in the tournament. Had they played as well in this tournament as they did in the SEC tournament? I don't even know that answer is yes.
Well, that's my point. Is they have at the SEC in Nashville, they played 3 exceptional ball games.
Mm-hmm.
But Todd said, even looking back at that, Todd says in these last 10, which would include the SEC tournament, we haven't played our best basketball.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling that this is a team that plays to the moment.
Yeah.
You see what they did against Texas Tech. The game is 10 down. All of a sudden, they play to the moment. They come from behind. Look what they did against UConn. Same thing. These guys just have this habit of raising their level to whatever is necessary. And I think that we're going to be in ball games, this ball game Saturday. I think they're going to be at their best for 40 minutes. I don't see them all of a sudden saying, okay, guys, can we flip the switch and just put these guys away like they've done in these last couple of weeks? I don't think they can do that anymore. I think they got to come here with an assassin's idea. Okay, we're going to just, a bullet through the eyeball and that's it. It's over. Get it out of the way. Kick, do whatever you got to do. But make these people wish they had never taken up the game of basketball in the first place. Beat them that badly. And that's the attitude I think you got to have when you get to this level.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Betty, go.
Go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think there's absolutely no reason why this team can't win it all. I think that their depth is going to carry them far. I think that they are incredibly talented. I do agree with Franz that they play to the moment, for good or for bad, sometimes. And I think that their best basketball is ahead for them. And you think about these games and some of the miscues in some of these games that they were able to overcome at the end. Imagine if they're playing a game without some of these miscues. That would be even more of a dominant performance than we've seen. Good teams, win the games that they should. Great teams have the ability to overcome their mistakes and to will themselves to victory. And we've watched that from this team. That team has that capability. So I have every belief that they will beat Auburn. I think that Duke is more than likely who they will play, but either one would be an incredible battle. I think we as Gator fans would potentially prefer to see Houston, but there is zero reason they can't beat any of the 3 teams left right now.
I don't want to go ahead, Franz.
I think this team I don't know, buddy, do you remember Urban the week of the 2006 national championship, how all of a sudden, Urban was saying basically the same thing Todd's saying, that, we hadn't played our best yet. Now, he was saying that in private. Publicly, he was saying, boy, that Ohio State team, I see, they got 85 on scholarship and 211 of them are going to get drafted in the first round.
And they might make up fake stories and put them on the bulletin board.
Oh, that was the best. They were so mad about being disrespected, and half the stuff they were mad about was a lie. It's fabulous.
But in private, he's telling us we haven't even played our best game. Greg Madison pulls me aside, says, just the weight of these guys, wait till they see my guys. I mean, he's, his red bald head is turning as red as Ohio State crimson, and he is just frothing at the mouth. He says, Stephen Harris is going to hit that All-American center so hard, he's going to sack their quarterback, and he damn near did it. I mean, it was, but this was a guy. Urban sold what they got to do, and they did it. Mm-hmm. I think Todd is selling what there's a similarity. Great coaches do this. Billy Donovan did it. for two consecutive years. He sells a concept and his team grasps it and says, okay, let's go out there and do it, which is why you see a guy like Tommy Hawk or Denzel Aberdeen stepping up and doing whatever it takes to make sure that you don't let the team down when you go win the ball game.
It's how you're able to develop players like David Nelson. It's same concept.
What a great, thank you for bringing that up. My gosh, I haven't thought about David in forever. And there he was, a guy that gets convinced that, okay, I got to play special teams if I want to catch passes. And he becomes Florida's best special teams player, other than the punter, of course. And
well, I want to say this. I had a really good friend close to the team, and you know who he was, Franz.
Yeah.
Me and Lou, what was going on. And he asked me one day what players I like off that team. And I mentioned David Nelson. This is back when he was a sophomore or whatever, freshman. And he says, well, he'll never see the field. I said, what do you mean? He's a good player. I watched him practice. He catches the ball, runs good routes. He said, he's not tough enough and he doesn't want to play special teams or whatever. So I always liked David Nelson. He was one of my favorites. So now, Franz, you can pick it up. What happened one day after the loss, who shows up in Urban's office? But David Nelson, who says what?
Yeah. And you got to remember in 2006,
coach, he said, right? Remember?
Yep. And you got to understand in 2006, they get to Auburn. I mean, not to Auburn, up at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had a good ball club that year and gave the Gators a run for their money. And David Nelson made a hell of a special teams play that really, really helped save that game. And he did the same thing against LSU that year too. Two great special teams plays, and he earned the chance to catch a touchdown pass in the national championship.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Fast forward 2 years later, and David Nelson catches a touchdown pass in the national championship.
Yeah, for sure.
He points to his dad, who was fighting cancer at the time, in the bleachers in the end zone that he caught it in.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that up. That warms my heart up. I'll tell you what's going to warm my heart up though, and it's going to warm my heart if Todd beats Bruce Pearl. And I love Bruce. Bruce is one of my buddies, and I love Bruce and I love Steven, but it's going to do my heart good to see Todd be able to go up there. And I know he's going to be very tearful when it happens, because he's going to feel almost embarrassed that he had to beat his mentor. Almost, not quite.
That's when you know that you've completed your mission as the mentor, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like Urban being able to walk across the field, and there is Jim Tressel, who was an assistant coach at Ohio State when he was a GA, and stuff like that. Stuff, this is the cool thing about being able to be around sports is we get moments like this. I mean, buddy, I'll throw something at you, buddy, that I was reminded of this week. And somebody brought up the name Howard Twilley to me, a guy you remember oh so well, who played for the Dolphins.
Dolphins from Tulsa.
Yep. He caught 132 passes in one season at Tulsa from a guy named Jerry Rome. And I don't think he ever caught more than 14 or 18 passes in a season with the Dolphins. But by gosh, he'd get out there at 5'10" and 180 pounds, and he put the fear of God in linebackers because he hit them so hard, and made clutch catches too. And it's the guys like this that you see. Like we were talking David Nelson, or we're talking about the 2006 and 7 basketball teams, good old Mr. Richard coming off the bench, and never complained. Could have transferred out, was Mr. Basketball in the state, and he comes here to Florida, and suddenly he's backing up Noah and Horford. Never complained, but always came off the bench, unsung guy. And let me throw in one quick thing about him. I'm sitting there with him at after the season's over, and his locker is right beside Joakim Noah's. Okay, now he could cook a 7-course meal. He raised his siblings while his mother worked 3 jobs. So here's his locker room. You could eat off of it. Joe Kim Noah had stuff literally growing out of his extra shoes.
Oh, yes.
The total slob next to Mr. Neat Freak. But you get stories like this when you have championships and championship runs. They bring out the best in us.
Well, so I wrote an article, this was a bajillion years ago, back when Rivals was called Gator Bait. And I wrote an article for them about the difference between a championship team and a championship program. And I used David Nelson as an example in it way back then, but I think to have a championship program, which is what I think Donovan had, which is what I think Urban had, which is what Spurrier had, you need your Percy Harvin, but what you really need is your David Nelsons, your Butchie Rowleys, your Billy Latskos, guys that are going to continue to pass down what it means to wear the orange and blue, that care about the logo on the front more than they care about the name on the back. And they have the ability to transfer that love to players younger than them before they leave the program. And that is how you really continue that winning tradition, as opposed to just a one-off team. And I think in Florida, we have been so blessed that all of our major national championships were teams built that way. We all recall a million stories about, I think about James Bates on the 96 team. And, there's just a cast of characters, maybe not somebody who's going to go on and, catch a million passes in the NFL or have a 10-year career there or whatever else, but they made their impact here.
James Smith, Joey Sorrentino.
100%. Yes. I mean, I even think about guys like Cade Holliday. Guys that gave their all for the right reasons, for the guy playing next to them. And Florida has been really blessed with guys like that.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a guy, buddy, that your favorite guy who fits that. And that's Denzel Aberdeen, who could have transferred 2 consecutive years.
Yeah.
Now he's in year 3. And it was so cool. I saw him outside the Hefner Center early in the season, and I said, I've been watching you play ball since you were 12 years old playing AAU ball. I said, be patient. Your time's coming. I said, you're too good. I said, just keep that in mind. I saw him in the locker room after Texas Tech, and he just kind of grinned at me. He says, you were right. And I said,
yeah. Hey, guys, I got this thing from Mark Long. Brendan's got queued up for me. I got to tell them about Titan MRI. You're welcome to hang around if you can. If you can't, I know you probably got to get going. You got to get up early in the morning. But if you can't,
I got to be at the airport at 4
o'clock.
Both
of you just go and leave me, okay? Get out of
well, watch, buddy.
I'll do it by myself, okay?
Just do it.
Have a good trip out to San Antonio, Franz. Allie, thank you so much.
No problem. Bye, guys. Franz, you're gonna soak up the memories for all of us. All right.
Hey, I'm gonna be eating at Mi Tierra with mariachis playing their guitars and singing songs while I eat huevos rancheros.
I love.
So they actually met them out there. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much. All right.
Yes.
Now don't get Allie Peek Wilbur's inside the Gators. Peek inside the Gators. All right. All right, fans. Have a good trip. I'll see you. All right, folks. I want to tell you about our sponsor, but I want to also tell you about Titan MRI first and imaging. Now Titan MRI imaging is what it's called now. They acquired High Field MRI. Joe Colorio started High Field MRI in 1997. Now he's back, and Titan MRI imaging is 3 locations to serve you: 2 in Gainesville with its Park Avenue location, and now at the Millennium Center, and 1 in Lake City serving all of Columbia County, and also in Valdosta, Georgia. Titan MRI imaging offers the same great customer service. They like my friend said the other day when he did the spot, if you're beat up and banged up and you're not feeling good, go do something about it. Go down and get your MRI, your CAT scan, find out what's wrong with yourself and get it fixed. This is what you can do at Titan MRI and Imaging. Now accept insurance. You can go through their convenient self-pay option. They offer MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds. Easy scheduling with lots of options, including evenings or weekends. Titan MRI and Imaging. Check them out. All right, folks, here's a little something that played earlier. We're going to play this. Brendan called it up for us. Mark Long talking about what he thought of the situation with DJ Lagway. Well, I hope we're going to be able to do it.
I have been told that at some point he is going to have or needs to have shoulder surgery. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I haven't seen an MRI, an X-ray or anything, but that's what I've been told, that either he has it this year or he has it next year. They don't want him. He doesn't want to have it this year. Nobody wants him to have it this year. But, there's always that concern. It might even be a 2% chance, but it's a chance. I think best case scenario is he heals up, he plays this season, and then he has shoulder surgery like the day after the season ends. Maybe it ends in the CFP, and he has shoulder shortly thereafter to repair what I believe is a high school injury that just does not heal the way it's supposed to heal, or the way they had hoped it would heal. And he played through it last year, played through pain, all kinds of good things. I mean, like everything we love about DJ Lagway, this tells you a little bit more about him. He played through this very.
There you go. Interesting comments. We'll see how that plays out. Hopefully, it won't have to happen next year. I want to thank our guest tonight. Always good. Steve Russell. Good to have Steve on. We'll have him on more often. Peek Wilbur is always a treat. Franz Beard. We didn't hear from Scott Carter, but he's out there in San Antonio, and he had things he had to do, and I understand that completely. So, well, thank you for our sponsors, for our listeners. Have a great night, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night right here in the Buddy Martin Show.